Mungindi Central School is in an isolated rural area. In 2002, we were a school of over 200 students. We are now down to 107 students, although we did go down further. About 3 years ago, we were about 84 students. We have a very successful transitional preschool that prepares students for kindergarten, and we then proceed on to year 12, which means that we educate children from their earliest years until they enter the work environment. I arrived in 2004, and at that time the school was suffering a great loss of student numbers due to the drought. People were choosing to either leave the district or they were choosing to go to another school. And what happened is our school became confused, and the parents were very hurt that they were seen to be being abandoned. I believe in that year we had 523 suspension days. Basically the school was dispirited and lost. And that's when I decided we needed to revision ourselves. We had to think again who we are, what we were trying to achieve, and how we were going to do that. It took us 2 years to complete our visioning. It took that time for us to work with parents, with teachers and with students to help them understand that there is a purpose for school and that the school is there to help students have a future or have choices in life. It was also a process to help children and parents understand what goals were and the necessity of goals. For that reason, we put in the PLP, the personalised learning plans.
We had to write down what we wanted to get better at and what we can do and what our teachers can do as well.
Academic goal, and I want to learn more about writing and my work. And this is what I can do at school. Writing. What my teacher can do, remind me of areas I need to work on, and she'll give me feedback. And what I can do at home, I can take a sample of my work home and discuss it with Mum and Dad. I can talk about...
After that first PLP, we noticed that parents were taking a bit more interest in what was happening with the children, and they were coming to the school more often because they knew that we were listening and that we really cared about every single child.
They just didn't want to learn, they didn't want to do anything. They wanted to be perfect at everything that they could do, and they didn't have the skills to be able to be perfect, and so they became extremely frustrated. They knew they should be able to do things and they couldn't do them, so then we just had the avoidance strategies.
The students would literally be crawling under the desks, to get away from, from teacher content, if you like.
Kids hiding in cupboards, kids walking out the door, kids just not wanting to come to school because school just wasn't fun.
We had lost a number of teachers with this particular group. They were quite a challenging group of students. And I remember saying to her, the only thing I want by the end of term 1 is that I can walk in there and it will look like a classroom. I didn't worry about outcomes. All I wanted was a room that was functioning as a classroom.
But the very first thing that we had to do was to get them to understand why they came to school. And they all knew they came to school to learn.
That's my house, that's my car, and that's my clothes, and my suits, and my shoes and that, and why do I come to school to learn? Why do you want to learn to get smart? Why do you want to get smart to get a job? Why do you want to get a job? To get the big bucks? Why do you want to get the big bucks? To get a house, a bad car, and some clothes and undies.
We started to talk about, what does a good student look like and what does a good teacher look like?
They be nice to you and they help you and they ask you questions and they smile and they laugh at you.
So I will prepare a workshop on probably butterflies and a second workshop just in case. Next important thing that we started to be able to do was to set them up for learning, to get them to understand. They were learning how to learn, basically. So you can choose.
You would need to stay between the lines. You would need a lead pencil, not a pen, because if you muck up, you can't rub it out. Copy and trace neatly. This is our quality and effort chart. I've done 5-star on this. I'll write neatly in the box. I'll write my name and the date. I put 1 cross through my mistakes. And I had to go first, then ask for help, then I put things back where they belong.
As they grew in confidence, they were more able to give us what they genuinely thought about these kinds of things.
I gave myself 1 star for PE today because I wasn't ready, I wasn't listening, I wasn't doing the right thing and I gave up. But I got along.
I guess the biggest learning for that, and this is the thing that still makes me laugh, is that we did these posters, but one of the last things we got to was what a 5-star poster looked like. So they'd sort of done, probably 2 or 3 posters by this stage, and then posters was on the list, 5-star poster, and we wrote out what they wanted a 5-star poster to look like, and we all looked back at the posters that they just made, and none of them were 5 stars. So I said, what will we do about them? And they were quite happy to rip them up and start all over again because they didn't meet their criteria. And I thought, wow, if I'd sort of said to them, that isn't good enough, let's do that again, then, we probably would have had tears. We guided them in being able to give them the independence.
The columns are, I have heard of this one. I can do it with help is the second one. The third one is I can do it on my own is the third one. And the fourth one is I can teach someone else.
We explicitly taught them. We got the matrix out and we went through the matrix with them. Everything we were going to do in that unit, they knew it was up front. So we just ticked off as we went.
Either 2 ticks, 3 ticks or 4 ticks. The 2 ticks is if you've done it with help, the 3 is if you've done it by yourself, and the 4 is if you help someone. And if you help someone, it's really good.
And then the next term we come around and it was even less. We gave them the matrix and we still worked through the matrix, but we asked them to find on the matrix what we were working on and for them to tick where they thought we were. And then that continued for the second term, so into the third term. And then by the 4th term, we gave them their matrix and then sort of said, okay then, well this is what we're doing and now I'm going to run some workshops. Submer, what does that sound like? Submer. Submarine. Where do they go? Where do they go? Underwater.
If you don't know how to do it, because I don't know my times tables, say if she was doing a workshop on times tables, I would definitely go to it, and other people might not because they know their times tables.
We explicitly teach the kids how to make choices for themselves because they don't know. So we can't just go in there and say, here's a matrix, choose what you want to do on it, because it's too overwhelming for them. They don't understand.
When people need help, they help other when they get stuck on reading or spelling or maths. 6. Now next one. There is an on side and an off side. On there's what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what other people say me doing, hear me saying.
We sat down with the students and we worked out that there were 2 ways of being, and we characterised them as on or off, on task or off task. We drew that inside a human body, so the students understood that on and off was something that was coming from them, that was something that was inside them, and they could more or less choose to do it one way or the other. We asked them what it felt like, what was going on internally when they were on, or what was going on inside them when they were off, and they were able to unpack their feelings.
When you're on the off this day, they just go mad, all that stuff. And they cry and go out in the hat room. It was good and when we did this on list because they get to talk about all the bad things and the good things.
The You Can Do It program I brought into the school because I wanted students to have a language of success. Our students didn't know language of success and how to achieve success.
First we just got some blue cardboard and then we started typing down on the computer so we can learn and hard work, doing our own work and not sulking, keep trying, never giving up.
From preschool to year 12, we introduced the same concept at the same time and then reinforced it. And eventually the language of the You Can Do It program became what we did in our lives.
If I'm not being persistent, I can look up and read them things and then I start getting persistent.
Okay, and we're looking for a positive day today and have a great time.
We decided to have what we call the key room. The students are referred after normal classroom procedures to the key room, and then the teacher there will say, okay, what went wrong? Why are you having these difficulties? And what can we do about it? And let's devise some strategies. And so the student has someone who will listen to them, and quite often that's a very powerful strategy, is that someone is listening and someone cares about why they're having these difficulties. Some of our children come from backgrounds in which they have no adult that can help them with some of their problems. So the teacher is there again to listen. We've had kids writing diaries, and in the diaries they just come every day, unload whatever has happened at home, and then they're ready for the day and they can go off into the day. The diary no one ever looks at, it's their own diary, but that has been a very successful strategy for a number of students. In 2004, if I didn't suspend a child, the teachers couldn't understand it. They thought I wasn't supporting him. Every teacher now knows that I support them. However, I will not suspend unless it's absolutely necessary, that there are other ways that we can work together. And teachers now, if a student is having trouble in one class, they're very happy to say, okay, we'll have someone with me today and we'll give him some meaningful work to do until he's ready to go back into the other class. So teachers are much more willing to have ownership of every child in our school. So there's nothing unusual about a child if he's having a bad day. He can elect to go to the key room, or he may go into another classroom and work, or she may work in another classroom. And I think that's exciting, that every teacher feels ownership for every child in the school. It started as a little flame in the 2, 3, 4 classroom, and now it's growing and developing.
I've just taken small steps with my class, which is, I think, what they needed, just one small step at a time. I started off with a spelling capacity matrix.
If you've heard of the word, like funny, if you heard of that, you'd highlight the first box, and then the second box, if you can read the word. And then you turn over to your next page, and on the next page,
We have weekly meetings where we share what we've been doing in our classroom.
And we left the evidence box blank this time because we wanted them to be able to write down their own evidence.
Been able to share all the little steps we've taken in our room, from developing the capacity matrix to how we're going with assessment at the moment. That's been great professional development.
Because you said that was working really well with them being able to write every session in a different...
The journey, I feel like, that the teacher takes in letting go of the control is not easy. It's difficult. Well, it was for me, I suppose. Ever
since I've been teaching, it's been about the teachers trying to teach the students, to tell them what they need to be learning, at what time that they have to be doing it. whereas now the students are taking control of their own learning.
You know, we really just had to try and make learning fun for them. We really had to engage in that, and that was just, you know, quality learning helped enormously in being able to do that.
My role, rather than more or less like, you know, telling all of the students what they had to and needed to do, was just to make my guidance as non-threatening and as inviting as was possible. You can change your answer if you like.
So when you try something, it may not work, but don't throw the whole thing out. Find what did work and then speak with the kids about what they liked about it. So it's very much those unit reflections is a huge tool in being able to say to kids, what did you like? What could we have done better? What do you think we could have added that's completely different that would make it more fun for you? Involve the kids in absolutely everything.
I didn't really like reading. Then when I got over to the books, the bigger books, then I started to like that. If it gets harder, you get smarter.
When they first came into our class in the 2, 3, 4s, most of the Year 2s were reading at less than a level 6 when we did our running records on them. So we would sit down and do their running records, and most of them will come out at less than level 6. You know, they've all just been benchmarked now through a reading record at, you know, the lowest one is now at a 24, and most of them are at 30 plus.
The children that are now in Year 4, I've been with them since they were in kindergarten, so I've seen a big change from kindergarten to where they are now in Year 4, behaviour-wise, work-wise, their literacy and numeracy skills have improved out of sight.
This year, we only had 35 suspension days.
My sisters say to me, look, what are you doing to my children at school? And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, well, Monica can do this now. She can write her name. She knows how to spell. She's always writing. She's got 10 brothers and sisters. She's always writing their names down. She comes home and she's singing these songs about spelling and stuff like that. And I said, well, that's what we do.
It helps you a lot. You get workshops on it. You can do it with friends. It makes maths fun.
We have a parent community who are now proud of their school, who are involved in the school functions, and who have a voice in the school.
They seem to care about the kids. And if you get a problem, just come and have a yarn to them, and they'll sit down and have a yarn to them and have a listen to what you got to say. And yeah, they're really good today. Yeah.